Mark Levin here. The post-election economy could be a minefield of inflation, massive debt, and currency instability. That's why I count on gold for my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and that's who I turn to for my own investments. Call them now, 800-900-8000, for a free gold investment kit, and see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Don't wait and see if post-election chaos destroys your savings. Act preemptively. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Obviously, we'll talk about October 7th and other issues today, but I want to talk about something first because it's on the precipice. We have a Category 5 hurricane that is going to slam into the west coast of Florida and basically devour the entire state. It's currently at 180 miles per hour. Over 156 miles an hour is a Category 5. So it's a category, call it whatever you want. Depending on the level of the wind and the surge that hits the west coast of Florida, it could be the worst hurricane in modern history, that is recorded history in the United States. We don't know, but it's going to be very, very bad. And the swath is going to cut through the vast majority of Florida, coming in the west, exiting on the east. At least that's their trajectory. In the meantime, people are still suffering from Hurricane Helene. Now, Fox and others have had all kinds of news people and cameras on location in western North Carolina. FEMA was not prepared. FEMA was not there. Joe Biden did not call up the 82nd Airborne, which apparently is not that far. It's in North Carolina, as I understand it. But they've called up the 82nd and the 101st a week later. A week later. Things were not properly pre-positioned. I don't care what this bureaucrat, Deanne Griswold, has to say. She was big on DEI. They talked about prioritization when it comes to these emergencies and these natural disasters, about LTPGG and what all the rest of it. It's insane. What we saw were people, volunteers, in the neighborhoods, in the community, in the state, throughout the country, private helicopters, private aircraft, flying in as many supplies as they could, individuals, organizations, charities, doing everything they could. They were the first on the ground. The first on the ground. And they weren't bringing $750 checks that could be deposited 10 days later. Essentials, water, food, clothing, flashlights, everything they could get. Samaritan's Purse, which isn't located too far from this area. Tremendous work, and others too. People have thanked the Red Cross. I know the Red Cross can be controversial, but it is what it is. And other organizations that have helped throughout the world. Veterans have been active. Police officers have been active. First responders in the localities have been active. Firefighters and so forth, mostly volunteers. Centralized red tape, big government. Versus just red-blooded Americans doing everything humanly possible to help their fellow citizens. Kamala Harris did not attend a single pre-Hurricane Helene meeting. Not one. And now, in the Gulf, off the west coast of Florida, is a massive hurricane. It's beyond a Category 5. There is no other category. Most houses in Florida that are newly built under state law have to meet 170 mile an hour wind capacity. That doesn't even include these massive waves. So the wind right now is even beyond the zoning requirements because they've never seen anything like this in modern times. They're talking about waves at 15 feet above sea level. Hurricane Helene was 7 feet at its highest point above sea level. Florida's going to get whacked. There you see Governor DeSantis. He's on the job. He's explaining where things are going to be, what people need to do. They have 30,000 men and women ready to work the power lines from all over the country. 8,000 National Guardsmen. And I could go on and on and on, but it is an enormous task for one state. It's an enormous task. Where's Kamala Harris today? Has she been in any pre-Hurricane Milton meetings with FEMA? No, she hasn't. Where's Joe Biden today? Has he been in any pre-Hurricane Milton meetings with FEMA? Not that we're aware of. They haven't announced any of it. What's the problem, America? Are they just too damn lazy? Is it because these are mostly Republican areas? What's the issue here? Are they just cold-blooded? This is their job. She's the vice president of the United States. I mean, doesn't she want to be seen as a leader? Doesn't she want to be seen as somebody who can get the job done? No. They want to distance themselves. I'm not the border czar. The border's exploded. No, I'm not the border czar. Hurricane Helene. Well, we've done everything possible, FEMA's on the ground. Well, which ground are they on? And now this hurricane. This hurricane is going to hit Wednesday. Today is Monday. Does Joe Biden give a speech to the nation? By the way, they may do all these things after they hear this program. But I'm saying, as of now, no speech. No warnings. These are natural disasters, but they have national impact. By the way, this is also a reason you need to vote early. You never know what the hell's going to happen in your life. But so I have seen nothing. Nothing. Have you? From this administration, at the highest levels, I've seen nothing. Talking to the American people, advising the American people, explaining that things are prepositioned and on and on and on. All we heard a few days back from the Secretary of DHS, who was impeached, and then that impeachment trial was blocked unconstitutionally by Schumer and the Democrats, the most incompetent bum ever to serve in public office, next to Kamala Harris, quite frankly. We're out of money. Congress is out of town. They're running for re-election. We're out of money. And I heard the speaker say, wait a minute, before we left, we gave them $20 billion more. Then we know they gave $1.4 billion for illegal aliens. No, that's not in that pot. That's in another pot. And then yet in another pot. Somehow, as Steve Ducey press, the spokes idiot for the idiot president, did a fantastic job today. How is it that you find $157 million for Lebanon without Congress coming and meeting? And when it comes to North Carolina and Georgia and parts of Tennessee and other parts of this country that are really, really hurting, you have to wait for Congress. How is it possible? How is it possible they find the fortitude to forgive billions and billions of dollars in student loans? They don't really work very hard at this, do they, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to FEMA? Not very hard. Think about what would be going on in these mountain towns, in these rural areas right now, if it wasn't for volunteers, if it wasn't for those private helicopters and other aircraft, if it wasn't for companies like Walmart and others stepping up, if it wasn't for all these great heroes and all these neighbors and the first local responders, think about what would be going on. People would be starving to death. Many more would die than have died now. And they have a second crack at this, and nothing. We've heard nothing. If they're going to speak, today's the day to speak. Nothing. From Biden or Harris. And Harris wants a promotion. She's on some, what is it, TikTok show, some podcast, Mr. Producer, with some freak. Sex podcast, there you go. Then she's going to go on with The View, the Yentas. I guess she just wants to make sure that the left comes out and vote. Then she wants to go on Colbert, Howard Stern. This is how she intends to reach out to the American people. And this is in lieu of overseeing federal action when it comes to FEMA and Hurricane Milton. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, what a disaster this is. When you have people in charge of the instrumentalities of government, they really don't give a crap about the average person in this country while they're running around pretending that they do. It's dangerous. People die. There's casualties. The people in Florida, you know better than I. You know better than I. If you're in the way of this hurricane, particularly where it's going to come on land, get the hell out of there. I mean, get out. You've got a long way to go. Or some of you are going to die. Because nothing can withstand that kind of wind and that kind of ocean rise. It's just not possible. We have a lot of people in the WSKY area. You really need to pay attention to this. And all over Florida, we're heard all over Florida, from the very bottom of the tip to the very top of the boot. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, we may be standing on the precipice of a post-election economic meltdown. Any election can send shockwaves through our financial system, but this time, the stakes could be higher than ever. Reckless spending, mounting debt, misguided policies has set the stage for potential economic disaster. We can see rapid inflation or even attempts to undermine our currency. That's why I've always relied on diversification and gold for protection. It's been said to be a timeless safeguard against economic chaos, and in these uncertain times, it's more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold exclusively. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and they're who I turn to for my own investments. Call 800-900-8000 right now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help protect you from post-election chaos. You might even qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Donald Trump spent most of the day in the Brooklyn, New York area visiting the home and the burial place of the Rebbe. The Rebbe. For Orthodox Jews in particular, Chabad rabbis and their followers, he was a great wise man. He gave birth to this whole Chabad movement. I'm telling secular Jews and my Gentile friends just a little bit of background. This Chabad movement has been the one area of growth among Jews who identify with the Torah in a substantive way. Jews that identify with Jewish history in a substantive way, not just in an ethnic way. Not exclusively them, but it's the area of growth that it's attracting more and more young people, among others. And President Trump went there today and spent many, many hours there. October 7th. He prayed with Chabad rabbis. He spoke with them. He took his time. Kamala Harris gave a quick speech from the home of the vice president. She had her husband, Doug, a secular Jew, an ethnic Jew. He stepped up and he spoke too. Biden and Dr. Jill had a rabbi at the White House. And they lit a candle. And I don't put any of that down. But Trump doesn't just go through the motions. Whether it's going to Georgia and meeting the people who have suffered, whether it is the families of the 13 who died in Afghanistan, whether that is mothers and fathers who have suffered because their children have been raped and murdered by illegal aliens. This man has compassion. I know him personally. He's always checking on me. He's checking on people all the time. In other words, he always makes time for humanity. And of course, the media, as they always do, they want you to think that's Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Those people have ice water in their veins. I just talked about the hurricanes. You know about the border. They have ice water in their veins. And after October 7th, Biden and Harris talk out of both sides of their mouths. This has been the most hostile administration in the history of the relationship between the State of Israel and the United States of America. Ever. Ever. We've never had a president before who's withheld enormous amounts of armaments, from rifles and bullets to bombs, from our ally Israel, which is in the middle of a war on 7 fronts. Obama did some of this, but this is on steroids. We never had a president demand that Israel cede its ancestral homelands to its enemies, who just attacked it on October 7th. We never had a Secretary of State who was in bed with the enemy, the Iranians, or hired as an envoy somebody who was not only a special pleader for the Iranians, but hired effectively Iranian spies to work for him. We've never had an administration actually fund a terrorist regime, an enemy of ours in our state of Israel. And so that's why what Kamala Harris has to say, or Biden has to say, is irrelevant. And now, of course, they're telling Netanyahu, please don't attack the nuclear sites of Iran. We want them to survive. More when I return. Folks, we may be standing on the precipice of a post-election economic meltdown. Any election can send shockwaves through our financial system, but this time, the stakes could be higher than ever. Reckless spending, mounting debt, misguided policies has set the stage for potential economic disaster. We can see rapid inflation or even attempts to undermine our currency. That's why I've always relied on diversification and gold for protection. It's been said to be a timeless safeguard against economic chaos, and in these uncertain times, it's more crucial than ever. Remember, when it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold exclusively. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and they're who I turn to for my own investments. Call 800-900-8000 right now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help protect you from post-election chaos. You might even qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, making conservatism great again. Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson will be on the program next hour. And the Senate candidate from Montana is a real shot. Tim Sheehy against this guy Tester. He'll be on the program in the last hour. We're doing everything we can here to do what I can to take the Senate and to hold the House. We're going to start to have more House candidates on as well. During the course of the year, other hosts love to have senators on and congressmen on. I'm not big on guests generally, but we're mission-oriented here. Mission-oriented here before George Soros buys all the stations. You know, ladies and gentlemen, this guy Mark Kelly of Arizona, he kind of let the cat out of the bag. He was on, what show was it, Mr. Producer? Trying to find it here. He was on the Constipated News Network, A State of Confusion, which is Jake Tapper's show. Now, I want you to listen very, very, very carefully to this, okay? Because every now and then, Kamala or Joey or their surrogates, like Kelly, they blurt out or burp up the truth. Go.
Senator, you are in Dearborn, Michigan right now. There is a large Arab American population there, very open about its frustration with the Biden-Harris administration's support for Israel's retaliatory war in Gaza. Tensions are even higher because a U.S. citizen
Whoa. Retaliatory war? This Dana Bash is sick. You know, her father's a rabbi. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? It's a retaliatory war. It's a retaliation, yes, but it's a war of survival. Anyway, go ahead.
Killed as part of an Israeli strike in Lebanon. What is your message to Muslim and Arab American voters there who are seriously considering either sitting out this election or voting Republican?
So stop a second. So Kelly is in Dearborn, Michigan, which has the Wall Street Journal. They printed an op-ed by the founder of Memory.org, but was right on. And he called that ground zero for the jihadists in the United States. Kamala Harris has had secret meetings, at least one, maybe two, with the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. I call it Dearbornistan for a reason. They have imams there, they have activists there that are Jew haters through and through, including some who want the annihilation of Jews. Not all, but some. How do we know? We have their voices, we have their words, we have their faces. And there's Mark Kelly, senator from Arizona, who's campaigning there. And so now you heard the setup question. Now let's hear what Kelly says about what is your message, Senator Kelly, to these people there. Go.
Well, they shouldn't be considering that. They should be voting for Kamala Harris. I mean, she is committed to their values. She's
committed to their values. Whose values? The jihadis? Who are we talking about in Dearbornistan? Whose values is she committed to? Now listen, folks. This guy blew it. He burped up what he's telling them in secret, in quiet meetings, what she's telling them. This is why none of them ever criticized Tlaib or Omar. I mean, this is Tlaib's district. This is why Harris has never criticized Tlaib. In fact, has come to her defense. Tlaib is an out-and-out Jew hater. I always wonder, why is it left to me? Where are the networks and the cable shows? Where are they? Seriously, where are they? I mean, I don't mind it being left to me, but shouldn't this be well understood? We're in a presidential election, and we have one candidate, the Vice President of the United States, who cottons up to the anti-Semites? I mean, seriously, folks. And many of these people are burning the American flag. They're replacing it with the Palestinian flag and so forth and so on. You just heard what he said. Mr. Producer, can you roll it back just so slightly so we can hear this again? All right, then start at the top again, please. Listen to this, folks. I want you to listen to this.
Senator,
Go.
you are in Dearborn, Michigan right now. There is a large Arab American population there, very open about its frustration with the Biden-Harris administration's support for Israel's retaliatory war in Gaza. Tensions are even higher because a U.S. citizen from Dearborn was killed as part of an Israeli strike in Lebanon. What is your message to Muslim and Arab American voters there who are seriously considering either sitting out this election or voting Republican?
Well, they shouldn't be considering that. They should be voting for Kamala Harris. I mean, she is committed to their values. She met with them, many in the Muslim and the Arab community here earlier.
Okay, stop. We're not talking about the Muslim and the Arab community. I know many very wonderful Muslims and Arabs. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about radicals, activists, public officials. We're talking about people who have made their views known. That's what we're talking about. You know, ladies and gentlemen, there are many Arabs and Muslims who want peace. Oh, yes. Many of them signed up for the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia wanted to sign up for the Abraham Accords. They were blocked by Biden and Harris, who insist that they insist on a Palestinian state. But Israel gets along with many, many Arabs and Muslims who actually are quietly siding with Israel against Iran, against Hezbollah, against the Palestinians, that is Hamas. People don't understand this. They ought to understand it. At book signings, these people come up to me. And in the public square, they come up to me. And they're right. But that's not who Kamala Harris is reaching out to. And that's not who Mark Kelly's talking to. That party will not condemn Tlaib, will not condemn Omar. These are Marxist Islamists of the most extremist kind. They're pandering to them. I did not hear Kamala Harris today condemn what was going on in New York City. Go look at my social sites. I posted one video, New York City, about 5 p.m. today. Hundreds and hundreds, if not 1,000, people are marching with the Hamas flag, with the Hezbollah flag, with the Islamic Jihad flag, calling for the extermination of the Jews, for wiping Tel Aviv off the face of the earth. Go ahead and look. She hadn't said a word about this today. Nothing. Neither has Biden. There's a reason why. Anti-Semitism is flowing through our streets, flowing through our universities and colleges, now flowing through our public schools, flowing through our media. They control the culture. We don't. You have a fusion of the Democrat Party with the Marxist Islamists, with the media, with academia, all throughout the culture. She dare not condemn what's taking place because she sent her surrogate, Mark Kelly, senator from Arizona, to go to Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn, Michigan. The center of the jihadists. Tlaib's district. Not a word condemning what's taking place. Not a word. While Donald Trump was in New York City with the Chabad rabbis, praying with them. Praying with them. And when we come back, I was invited on to Fox and Friends. And it's always a pleasure to go on with those folks. They're excellent, really great hosts. And I want you to hear what took place. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, we may be standing on the precipice of a post-election economic meltdown. Any election can send shockwaves through our financial system, but this time, the stakes could be higher than ever. Reckless spending, mounting debt, misguided policies has set the stage for potential economic disaster. We can see rapid inflation or even attempts to undermine our currency. That's why I've always relied on diversification and gold for protection. It's been said to be a timeless safeguard against economic chaos, and in these uncertain times, it's more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold exclusively. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and they're who I turn to for my own investments. Call 800-900-8000 right now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help protect you from post-election chaos. You might even qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. This is Fox and Friends this morning. Turn up the volume. Here we go. Cut 9.
Mark, your thoughts about that schism that she has no problem talking about 1 year since those attacks?
She's evil. She's very evil. She's been undermining. Let's stop. I thought we were playing the part that he played at the front end. We'll do this the next hour, where Kamala Harris basically disses Netanyahu. I know. We'll play that next hour where she's basically... We'll play cut 1, Rich. Go ahead.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
First of all, that's how you undermine an ally. They've been trashing and dehumanizing and really trying to depose Benjamin Netanyahu since day one, because he's defending his country from enemies that surround his country and enemies in the Biden-Harris government. He will not agree to butcher up his country and give 30%, the ancestral land, Judea and Samaria, to the people who attacked them on October 7th. They're not going to do it. And they also saw what Biden and Harris and Blinken did in Afghanistan. They know that these people are nuts. They're insane. Even when it comes to our own defense and our own soldiers, our own people. They also know that Biden, Harris, and Blinken absolutely do not have Israel's best interests at heart. You might recall that on April 8th, right after they were attacked, that is Israel, Blinken put out a tweet talking about Israel and a ceasefire and then had to pull it back. The State Department is filled with rat finks and cockroaches. They have close associations with the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran and these other countries. And they've always hated Netanyahu because Obama has his hand in on this too. Obama has basically groomed Harris for the presidency. She's a Marxist Islamist just as he was. She's been taught to hate Netanyahu just as he did. And I went and I looked today. Netanyahu is by far the most popular person in public life in Israel, bar anybody. I also looked at the poll that came out the other day that the Israelis, if they had to vote themselves for Trump or Harris, Trump would win by over 2-1 by the Israeli people. So there's a difference between Jews who live in Israel and are surrounded by the enemy and people like Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders and people of that ilk who feel perfectly safe with their Marxist friends in this country because they don't have to worry about missiles being fired at them or their children being stolen and then taken into tunnels in the Gaza Strip. So that is what I want to discuss next hour, my response to that, because you heard Mark Kelly, who was sent to Dearborn, Michigan, to tell the Islamists there, the river to the sea crowd there, that Kamala shares your values. She's at war with Netanyahu, who is the elected leader of Israel. They talk about democracy, but they've been trying to oust him by underhandedly working with other cabinet members and so forth, and they failed. And it is very interesting. I now hear this General Kellogg, I hear Mark Thiessen on Fox, and they go on about how he's Churchillian. I think, Mr. Producer, and you in the audience can vouch for the fact, as well as the Fox audience and the Blaze, I've been calling Netanyahu Churchillian for 4 years. He's the Churchill of the free world. That's what he is. And he and Trump together, that's why they hate Trump and Netanyahu, brought peace to the Middle East. Peace to the Middle East. And I hope you saw my show on Fox last night, Sunday, where I talked about SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative, and missiles hitting missiles. How wrong Biden was. And how Kamala Harris is following suit. She votes to slash the defense budget. She votes against every single increase for our military personnel. She is bad. She is bad. She is bad news. People better wake the hell up. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. On this October 7th, the government of Israel, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, the longest-serving prime minister in the history of Israel, I think even longer than Ben Gurion at this point, the most popular figure in the country of Israel, who is openly hated by Kamala Harris, who wouldn't show him even enough respect as the elected prime minister of Israel to undertake her vice presidential responsibilities when he spoke at a joint session of Congress, who met with him afterwards, one-on-one, and apparently was very rude to him. She learned a lot from Obama. Then, of course, she's asked this question. You've heard this all day, but you haven't heard an effective answer. You've heard this all day long being played, but you haven't heard an effective answer. You see, she did an interview with 60 Minutes for 15 or 20 minutes, and 60 Minutes puts it out. This was on yesterday. Cut 1, and then follow it with 9. Go.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
Mark, your thoughts about that schism that she has no problem talking about 1 year since those attacks?
She's evil. She's very evil. She's been undermining the state of Israel since she's been in the United States Senate. She's defended Tlaib in her comments. She's never criticized any of the anti-Semites in her party. You'll notice they all support her. She's made brotherhood and sisterhood with the River to the Sea crowd, with the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. She picked somebody as her vice presidential candidate who was friends with an imam who talked about the evisceration of the Jews. She's a very evil person, and I want to go beyond that. This administration is evil. I don't believe October 7th would have happened, but for the appeasement and the subsidies given to Iran for the years leading up to October 7th by Blinken, by Biden, and Harris. They refueled their economy. They made it possible for them to purchase arms. They gave them a psychological advantage where they thought they could pretty much do anything and this administration would appease them. They pulled the trigger for Hamas to undertake this horrendous mass murder of Jews unprovoked. The next day, Hezbollah is firing missiles. On October 8th, Blinken puts out a tweet calling for a ceasefire and then quickly pulls it back. These are evil people. They have an ideological view of what they want to happen to the region that goes back to the Obama administration. They do not want Israel to be a power in that region. They do not want Israel to be able to defend itself. They talk out of both sides of their mouths. We have 30% of the United States Navy in and around the Mediterranean Sea. In the meantime, they're telling Israel right now, don't knock out Iran. Don't knock out their nuclear weapons. What? Their nuclear site. Don't hit their oil. Do what we do. Appease. We want to happen to Israel what we did to Afghanistan. There was peace. There were Arab nations stepping up. I read a piece the other day that Saudi Arabia is prepared to make peace with Israel, except they want to see who wins because they know that Kamala Harris will not accept a peace with Israel and Saudi Arabia unless Israel capitulates to the Palestinians. What's happened is this administration has leaked against Netanyahu. They're withholding arms from the military. They're trying to make Israel the perpetrator and the perpetrators the victims.
Right.
Their envoy to the Middle East, to Iran, was a special pleader for Iran who had spies under him. We have never seen anything like this in American history. The treatment of Israel. We don't treat any other country this way. You want to know why, Brian? And I'll speak the truth. This administration, like the Democrat Party now, is loaded with Jew-hating, Israel-hating anti-Semites. You see it in the streets. You see it in their constituency. You see it in their colleges and universities. They've barely done a damn thing to tamp down the anti-Semitism. This has been a horrendous, horrendous period of time. We went from peace in our time to war in our time, and the victim is now under attack. And for Kamala Harris, who can't lift a finger to Benjamin Netanyahu, to treat the elected leader of Israel, who is now the most popular figure in Israel, like this publicly, to undermine him, to talk about him this way, is a disgusting disgrace. And God willing, she won't get any closer to the Oval Office than she is right now.
So, Mark, you believe that they're slow-walking weapons still, not just the 2,000-pound bombs, which they said they reinstated. You believe there's a slow-walking of weapons, munitions of all kinds right now to Israel.
I don't believe it. I know it. I have the entire list of weapons that they're withholding that has been given to me, including armored tractors that they need to use to clear minefields, even withholding them. They're not withholding 2,000-pound bombs because Israel was dropping 2,000-pound bombs on school children in Gaza. They were withholding 2,000-pound bombs because they didn't want Israel to take out Nasrallah. They don't want Israel to attack the nuclear site in the oil fields where they need those 2,000-pound bombs. They're withholding jets. They're withholding rifles. They're withholding ammunition. They're withholding all kinds of military equipment. The only administration to do anything like this, but not to this extent, was Obama. Obama is one of the ones calling the shots here. And Obama is the one that has brought Kamala Harris in, who has worked Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris comes from a radical left background. Her pastor is anti-Israel. Her father was a Marxist. She is a San Francisco radical. And here's the problem with Kamala Harris. She is a radical Marxist Islamist ideologue. She doesn't want to put in the work and the effort, as we've seen with this horrible hurricane. She wouldn't go to pre-hurricane events in order to figure out what to do. And on top of that, she just ain't that smart. That's why they're treating her like a veal calf and keeping her as hidden as they can. So I want to say to the people of Israel, the people of the United States support you. We share the same Bible that you do. We share the same love of life that you do. Kamala Harris does not. And I certainly hope people keep this in mind when they're voting early and when they're voting on Election Day. We're live now. Kilman and I are buddies. Sid is over in Israel now. He and I are buddies, too. I posted his interview this morning on WABC with President Trump, which he sent to me, which was 28 minutes long, which was brilliant. So you can get that on all my social sites as well. This is very, very important. Very, very important because You understand, these things that I've said about the Middle East, or these things I've said about the border over the years, or the military, or the cops, they've all come true. Now, why is that? Because I'm Nostradamus? No, not at all. Because I know these people. I know who they are. I've dealt with them for my entire life. I know how they think or don't think. That's why I write these books. That's why so many of you read these books. Because I analyze them. Now, I'll tell you a little secret. I don't know where I put it. But way back when I was in kindergarten, they used to do these, I don't know if they called them IQ tests back then, but some kind of psychological test to see where your strengths were. What percentile you were in. Do you ever do those, Mr. Producer, when you were a kid? Well, they did this like when you're 4 or 5 years old. And so when it came to the kind of logic you use, you know, with numbers, it's okay. It was about 80, 85. And writing, you know, it's pretty high on writing in English, and then other things and so forth. Reasoning, 99%. I wish I could find that damn thing. I found it and I got rid of it, I guess. I don't know. 99%. Because that's what I do. I see things and I try and figure them out. What you just heard there, 6 minutes, concise, and yet covering a lot of territory. You will never hear clips of that on cable TV. You will never hear clips of that on news platforms. You'll never hear clips of that on other radio shows. Why? Because it's too honest. It's too blunt. Kamala Harris is evil. And she's evil in many ways. She's a pathological serial liar. She's a Marxist Islamist. She's all these things. I don't say it to be gratuitous. I'm not making it up. I know as much about her as anybody else. I mean, other than somebody that's in her inner circle. I remember the 92% staff turnover. I remember how she treated interns and told them not to look into her eyes. I remember how she would drop the F-bomb on and on and on. She's not a joyful woman who looks to the future. She's a hateful person. I watch her now, lying about Trump's position on abortion, lying about about all kinds of things. Just on and on and on. 2025 project. And she doesn't care. She could care less. We need to do better than that. We're a country of great people. We could see it with this Hurricane Helene. It's the American people who are stepping forward. It's always the American people who step forward, not government. If we rely on government, we'll starve to death. It's the American people. She despises you. Oh, she truly does. That's why she's for CRT and DEI and ESG and all the rest of the alphabet soup. That's why she doesn't believe. One of the things that hasn't really been focused on in this campaign is parental authority in the nuclear family. She rejects it. She rejects it. Tim Walz rejects it. What do you think that law about sex change operations in Minnesota is all about? Without parental notification. What do you think about Kamala Harris's extremely radical position on abortion, which is no parental notification? These are very dangerous people, and they are hiding their views as best as they can, and I am here to tell you about them. That when they're sending Mark Kelly to Dearborn, Michigan, and he says that she shares the values, you better pay attention to that. When she treats Benjamin Netanyahu like a second-class citizen, the head of the Jewish state put there by the Jewish people, you better pay attention to that. And I notice when they talk about these Palestinian casualties, even our friend Trey Yingst, what they need to explain is that Hamas wants Palestinian casualties, that Hamas wants civilian casualties, that Hamas uses its own citizens to protect them and to use his propaganda against the media and the Kamala Harris types Hamas not only targets its own citizens, it targets the Jewish citizens. But the context is never provided. Ever. Ever. There are 101 hostages. God knows how many are alive. They've been through worse than hell. Remember that 9-month-old, Mr. Producer, that they took hostage? There's no way that child's alive. I can't believe that child is alive, that they would take care, change its diaper, make sure it has some... No way. You know what the Nazis used to do to Jewish babies? They used to throw them up in the air and catch them with bayonets. They used to swing them against brick walls. Oh, they had a blast. And what exactly is Kamala Harris and her Jewish husband, Dougie, said about what took place in the streets today in New York City? Not a word. Joe Biden and Dr. Jill, what did they say? Not a word. Chuck Schumer, what did he say? Not a word. The Democrat Party is an umbrella organization to Marxists, to Islamists, to Jew haters, just as it was an umbrella organization to the Klan, and to God knows what else. She's counting on their vote. That's why Senator Mark Kelly's in Dearborn, Michigan, of all places. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data: unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. Breaking news. This is from, Jake Sullivan. Israel needs a strategy to turn military successes into lasting wins. A sustainable path forward. My God. My God, these people are just the worst of the worst on the face of the earth. I think it needs to be said now, Israel's not just fighting a war on 7 fronts, it's fighting a war on 8 fronts. The Harris, Biden, Obama, the collective, the pro-Iranian political hacks. They're pro-Iran. There's no way around it. You don't subsidize Iran, you don't protect Iran, you don't seek to protect their nuclear sites and their oil sites. There's not another administration on the face of the earth other than Obama's that would tolerate this, that would conduct itself this way. Israel cannot survive much longer if Kamala Harris becomes President of the United States, if Tim Walz is the Vice President, and they cede the State Department and National Security Council and Defense Department and CIA and all the rest of the departments with pro-Iranian Islamists. And I would say this, you can make the difference, America. Especially our Jewish friends. You can make the difference. In Pennsylvania. You can make the difference throughout the country. It's very, very important. that you put party aside and wake the hell up to what's going on here. I want to emphasize something else. Iran, with its Hezbollah front group, destroyed the country of Lebanon. The Lebanese people want nothing to do with Hezbollah. Iran took over the ancient country of Persia, that is, the Islamo-Nazi regime. 75-80% of those people are living in a police state. They don't want to live with that regime in power. Hezbollah murders, tortures, brutalizes. In Lebanon, it did in Syria when they were called in by Iran to hold up that regime. The Syrian people hate Iran and Hezbollah. We have men that lost their lives, lost limbs, lost their sight, God knows what else, fighting in Iraq. Iran now controls Iraq. Iran controls Yemen with the Houthis. Iran's trying to knock off Jordan. And Harris is all for it. How do I know? Because they're funding Iran. Because they want them to have a nuclear weapon. I'm telling you, folks, this election is existential for our country and the West and the free world. The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
It's an honor to have the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, with us. You know, Speaker Johnson, as I think about your coming on this program, I think to myself, I don't think anybody at a top level of our government has done more to try and help the state of Israel and to try and fight anti-Semitism than you. It's not Schumer. It's not Biden. It's not Harris. It's you. And you've pushed legislation to support Israel. You've pushed legislation to hold these colleges accountable. You've pushed legislation to protect college students. You've pushed legislation to help get the money and the arms to the state of Israel. You've been fought by Democrats, fought by Schumer, fought by Biden. On this October 7th, what are you thinking about all this? Because I'm sure you've thought a lot about this.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be with you. Thanks for those kind words. I have been thinking a lot about this. I've been thinking about what the biggest lessons are, the things we can take away from the horrific events of October 7th. And I think it boils down to a few things. This is what we all know right now. Number one, we can't ever let our guard down, right? We can't take anti-Semitism or terrorism lightly. These are barbarians on the other side. I mean, they will do despicable things, and they have to be met with overwhelming force. And it's up to us to do that, to hold the line. Another thing, I mean, we know that our enemies will exploit American weakness, right? I mean, the Biden-Harris policy of appeasement and their constant showing of weakness on the world stage has produced all this hostility. I mean, Russia's invasion, October 7th, they all came after the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. Massive foreign policy blunders, and showing this weak hand on the world stage is dangerous, and it has huge ramifications. And lastly, look, our biggest adversaries, China and Russia, are supporting Iran and its terror regime, right? And this fight is against Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran itself. It's also a fight for Western civilization and global security. A strong America is good for the entire world. The bond that America has with Israel is essential. And if Israel wins in the U.S., then freedom and liberty win for everyone around the world. And if Iran wins and China and Russia win, this is all over. I mean, this is for for all the marbles, and we got to take it very seriously. And October 7th reminds us of all that.
When you watch Biden and Harris and Blinken and this guy Sullivan and how they gang up against Israel, how they go against Israel behind the scenes at the UN and the EU with the French and the British, how they're literally withholding a long list of weapon systems and ammunition from Israel while they're lying about it, saying they're not, violating the impoundment of funds. It's unconstitutional. When you watch them talk out of both sides of their mouths, say, you know, we support Israel's right to defend itself. No, Israel has a right to win, doesn't it, Mr. Speaker? Not just defend itself.
Yeah. Absolutely right. And they have hamstrung Israel. They've not enforced, the oil sanctions on Iran. They've empowered this. And they're still, as you noted, they are absolutely withholding bombs and weapon systems. I mean, it's inexcusable. And by the way, it violates the will of Congress. I mean, we have voted to deliver all this to Israel, and they've thwarted the will of the legislative branch of the government. So it's a dangerous thing. I mean, for the sake of security in Israel, we've got an election in 29 days. I mean, we have to have a Republican Senate majority, keep the House majority, and we have to have President Trump back in the White House. We have to have strength back in the White House. I mean, Iran used to be broke. We used to enforce sanctions on them. This regime is not doing it. And we have to have a leader who unequivocally supports Israel and doesn't stall aid and resources and speak out of both sides of his mouth. I mean, this weakness has caused the disaster that we're witnessing today. And we need strength, and we need it right away. So it can't happen soon enough.
29 days. It's almost frightening, because the consequences are so monumental for our country, for our allies, just so monumental. Let's talk about this for a moment. Kamala Harris didn't attend a single pre-hurricane meeting when it came to Hurricane Helene. To my knowledge, she hasn't been meeting with FEMA. We have this massive new Hurricane Milton that's going to blow through the state of Florida. They come to you at the last minute and they say, hey, FEMA doesn't have any money. They know Congress takes time. They know the members are out running for re-election, including Democrats. Is this just these people are lazy and incompetent and they just don't want to do the hard work of running a country?
I think that's part of it. I think it's utter incompetence. I mean, they have failed the American people with their utter lack of leadership in responding to this hurricane. Mark, I'm from Louisiana. We know hurricanes. We know disasters. We know these events well. The thing about a hurricane is it's entirely foreseeable. We know about a hurricane at least a week in advance and sometimes 2 weeks, right? It's not like a tornado that drops out of the sky or an earthquake. We see it coming, and they knew this was going to happen. We appropriated $20 billion additional dollars Wednesday before last, before everyone went home to go campaign. FEMA has operational dollars for immediate storm, to handle the situation they have, and they've still dropped the ball. Now, we know when the states tabulate their losses and they send the request to the government, obviously Congress is going to act quickly, and it will be bipartisan. But it takes a while to tabulate all that. Right now, FEMA has the resources they need, but they're not using them. They have failed. And I hate to say this, but the American people are suffering, and some will die because of those mistakes.
You're right.
I mean, hundreds are still missing in North Carolina. We got 500,000 people without power and running water in the hills of North Carolina. It is inexcusable, and I think there's going to be a price to be paid for that at the ballot box.
And here comes the second one right behind it. Mr. Speaker, I look at this. They told us for years the border was secure. Then they blame you guys, say the border's not secure. They tell us for years. They just lie to us. I think the ruling class, particularly in the Democrat Party and the left, the gap between the people and Washington, D.C. is so great that they have to lie. They have to raise hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in their campaigns to lie to the American people, tell us inflation isn't as bad as you think, unemployment is not as bad as you think, the border's secure, and if it's not, it's their fault over there. Oh, we have people on the ground. The people in western North Carolina are saying, we haven't seen FEMA people. It takes a week to send out the 82nd Airborne and 2 more days to send out the 101st. Why?
That's the big question. And we know there are military assets available and ready to be deployed, and they weren't. We know that there were volunteer organizations, nonprofits, local churches, and Samaritan's Purse and others who some of these organizations were impeded in trying to get to the people they were trying to serve. Elon Musk, I talked to him myself a couple of nights ago. His Starlink people were trying to get communications to people stuck in the mountains, and FEMA stopped them told them they couldn't go because they needed an appointment with the people they were meeting with. I mean, it's madness. We had to cut through all the red tape so that Elon could benevolently try to help people. I mean, it shouldn't be this way, and this is failed leadership. And Kamala Harris cannot lie her way into office. She can't erase this horrific record. She's a radical San Francisco radical liberal, and she supports everything that the American people are against. And our job is to make sure we prosecute that case and that people know the facts. They're trying to run a campaign on fantasy, not facts. I'm so grateful to you, Mark, for getting the word out constantly on this. You're one of the boldest voices we have, and you got one of the biggest platforms, and I'm so grateful you're willing to use it, my friend.
Well, I thank you. Now, one last message to the American people. Tell them why they need to get out and vote early if their state allows it, and vote now.
We have to vote now. As Trump says so well, we got to make it too big to rig. There's going to be hijinks. There's going to be all sorts of efforts to obscure this. If this race is on record, not rhetoric, policy, not personality, we win every day and Sunday. It's got to happen. You got to get your friends to vote. This is the most important election that we'll ever have. I'm convinced of that. It decides everything. But we can win if the American people will get involved. I hope they will.
President, Senate, House of Representatives, all the other down ballots, you can't forget. You got to vote. You got to vote. You got to vote early. And isn't the other reason if you vote early, then you have time to help get other people out to vote because you're already booked your vote. You've already and also people who raise money, whether it's PACs or the RNC or candidates, they can then focus on voters they need to get out who may not typically vote. So voting early is very important for many reasons.
Yes, it's a great investment of time and resources because you're right. When those votes are banked early, then we can divert those resources to chasing other ballots and getting other people's votes in. So the more people that vote early, the better off it is. And Democrats have done that better than us in the past. I don't think it's going to be true this year. I think Republicans are going to vote early and get it done. We're counting on that.
All right, Mr. Speaker, thanks for your great work, and you are doing great work. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. Good to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. You take care of yourself. He's a decent man. He's trying to do the right thing, and he is doing the right thing. Where am I, Rich? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. Let me take a moment to have a conversation with you, my beautiful radio audience, my family. You and I, we've been doing this a long time. Some of you have been here more recently than others. We welcome you all. But you and I have spent many, many decades trying to improve the country, trying to save it from the left. We've seen the incrementalism taking place, incremental tyranny. People have dismissed us. People have tried to character assassinate us and smear us. Well, we've been right, and now we're here. We're at the precipice looking into the abyss. If we don't win this election, America will be changed. And I suspect America will be changed forever. Our enemies know it, and the Democrat Party knows it too. When I look at the crowds that gather for Donald Trump, I see patriots. I see people who love America, who love the people who founded this fantastic country, who are respectful to law enforcement, We're proud of our military. I see people who believe in the Ten Commandments, who have some level of faith and belief in God. I see people who believe in the nuclear family, parental rights. I see people who want to be treated with equality. Equality. Not based on who they are at birth or what they are at birth. I see people who want to compete on an even playing field based on merit. I see people who love their fellow citizens. I see people who love their country. Be honest. When you think of AOC, Tlaib, Omar, when you think of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and yes, even Joe Biden and Barack Obama, is that what you think? Do you think they feel the way you feel? Many of you have served in the military or have had family members who have served in the military. Many of you are in law enforcement or have or had family members who served in law enforcement. Many of you are driving 18-wheelers across the country. Many of you are union members. Many of you are not union members. Many of you work with your hands. It takes a big brain to work with your hands. God knows I'm not very good at it. But many of you, well, you've gone to graduate school. But we have the same thing. We embrace the same thing. We were raised by parents and grandparents who taught us to love our country, allegiance to our country. I'm calling on all of you, to stand up, to do something. You don't need to go to war. No, you don't need to go into battle. Together, nobody can beat us. We don't have to be part of an official organization. We don't have to rely on political parties to know what we have to do, to know what's right. We are citizens of the United States of America. You see what we're doing, people are doing, Americans are doing in Western North Carolina. Americans do this all the time. We need to do in our own communities, in our own states. We need to vote. We need to get as many people as we can to vote. We can't rely on a bureaucracy or a party or individual politicians. Millions and millions of you who are listening to me, this is up to us. We save this country for our children and grandchildren, or we lose it.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. Hello, 877-381-3811. Hello, wifey. I love you. Just sending a message out to my wife. Kamala Harris talks about getting things through Congress. She never, ever supported any kind of bipartisan legislation, ever. As vice president, she voted more than any former vice president, even in the 4-year period, to break ties on radical legislation. So she doesn't work with the Republicans, and she doesn't work with some of the Democrats. This whole thing is a complete fake makeup operation. She's not joyous. She's hateful and angry. She doesn't treat people nicely. No. The lower you are in the totem pole, the more she uses the F word and tells you not to look into her eyes. This is what we know. It's a fact. So obviously Obama told her to get out there and do more media, so she went on 60 Minutes. And I have to say, this guy Whitaker wasn't bad. And I want you to listen to this, particularly people who are getting splinters on your ass because you're sitting on the fence. Cut 10, go.
My plan is about saying that when you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class, and you strengthen America's economy. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
But pardon me, Madam Vice President, the question was, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, one of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes. It is not right that teachers and nurses and firefighters are paying a
stop there. This is the mantra the Democrats always use, isn't it? And they tax the hell out of you. Ladies and gentlemen, who has been vice president the last 4 years? And the billionaires are having a blast. The billionaire Democrat oligarchs are spreading their money around so fast because they know Kamala and the Democrat machine will protect them. Just invest in certain industries. They'll throw trillions of dollars into these industries over a period of years, and you'll make out like a multi-billionaire. Why do you think all these billionaires are lining up behind these Democrats? Because they're oligarchs, just like Russian oligarchs, big government oligarchs. They're not interested in, market capitalism, market competition. They have their hands in everything. Look at the Pelosi's. Worth hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not because that guy's ever invented anything, because they're always tipped off, in my view. But look at these billionaires on the Democrat side. Whether they're in finance, whatever the hell that means, or whether they're in production of different things, solar panels. Look at Soros. Look at Soros, the biggest sugar daddy the Democrats have. He was just handed 220 radio stations. That's what I mean. The billionaires on the Democrat side get richer. They never get poor. They get favors, the bureaucracy. The whole system works for them. Oh, they'll raise taxes on billionaires, just not on their buddies. Just not on their buddies. It's a true oligarchy. These are oligarchs. So when she says, the wealthy need to pay their fair share, she doesn't mean it. She means certain wealthy should pay their fair share, but in the end, it's you. There was not this inflation under Trump. It's under them. You didn't have these gasoline prices, these fuel prices under Trump. You have it under them. You didn't have these costs for clothing and essentials under Trump. You have it under them. And so they'll talk billionaires till they're blue in the face, but you're the target. You're the target. When they screw up the economy, you're harmed. And so she's there talking as if she's just a newbie, just running for the presidency. No. She bragged about Bidenomics. She talked up Bidenomics. She said it really wasn't hurting you, that we're coming out of inflation. Yes, those of you who can't afford your rent or your mortgage, I'm telling you, look across the board. These are basic things that people need to subsist on. Food, fuel, transportation, a roof over your head, clothing, basic stuff. That's where prices are going through the roof. And then they blame businesses. Well, those same businesses existed under Trump. How come they weren't ripping you off back then? Because these people are psychopaths. They're pathological liars. And so she'll throw anything out there. She has every intention of stealing your private health care from you. Every intention of doing it, like Obama lied. She has every intention of driving up tax rates on the middle class. Every intention. Go ahead.
Than billionaires and the biggest corporations. And I plan on making that fair.
But we're dealing with the real world here.
But the real world includes...
How are you going to get this through Congress?
When you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress...
Stop right there. You should have looked at her face. It looked like she was giving birth to... Well, she looked very painful. Go ahead.
They know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly what I'm talking about. Their constituents are those firefighters and teachers and nurses.
Oh, really? I ask firefighters, teachers, and nurses, how is that Bidenomics working out? How's it working out? Not well. Trump proposes no taxes on tips. She follows up no taxes on tips. Trump proposes no taxes on tips because people, waiters and waitresses and others, they can't make ends meet. So Trump proposes, so she throws it in there. She's not going to do it. Why? Because they control the Senate, they control the presidency, and they control the vice presidency right now. And the Republicans would do it in 2 seconds, but they've never proposed it. No taxes on Social Security. Well, then she proposes it. Well, she proposes it? They could have done it over the last 4 years. The Republicans would have supported it, but they didn't do it. Then they talk about bipartisan legislation. I don't know how many more times I have to explain this phony immigration legislation, but let me put it to you this way. For 3 years, they said the border was secure. You didn't need legislation. The border is in order. And they lied. And then they juxtaposed, they moved, they swiveled, they took a different position. Oh, no, it's a disaster. Because, you know, your eyes aren't lying to you, but it's Trump's fault. She made no sense because she's dumb. She's an ideologue, but she's dumb. You don't have to believe me. I could play 10 hours of audio and video. But her own campaign thinks she's dumb. She's going to go on Howard Stern. I have nothing against Howard Stern. I don't know Howard Stern. What do I care? But I do remember when Howard Stern was a persona non grata. Not because he was a liberal like he is today, but because of the way he treated women. The way he spoke about women. The way he spoke about women who were guests in his studio. Again, not attacking Howard Stern, but the left and the Democrats, you would think they'd be very, very concerned about this. Kamala Harris is the candidate of women, so she's going to talk to Howard Stern? Really? People want to bring up old Howard Stern skits? I mean, if the shoe were on the other foot and he was supporting Trump, and Trump went to Howard Stern's show, what do you think they'd do, Mr. Producer? They would destroy Howard Stern. They'd bring up all the things that Howard Stern did 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago. I don't know. They'd bring it all up. But the media, no. It's Howard. He's one of us now. Howard's gone. Left-wing Democrat establishment. That's what he is. I guess that's what happens when you get those big contracts. Again, to each his own. But Howard, then she's gone on The View. The View, the Yentas, who say the most horrendous things, the most outrageous things. What is that Hostin? What is her first name again? No, not Sunny. What is her real name? Lucione or something? She's definitely not Sunny any more than Joy is Joy. But her ancestor owned slaves, right? Her ancestors owned slaves. My ancestors didn't own slaves. Wouldn't they mock her and that for that? These are where she goes. She thinks that's representative of the American people, The View. That's representative of 5 stupid women. I know smart women. They're in my life. Those are stupid women. So Howard Stern, 5 stupid women, and what's the other one? Oh, the podcast. This podcast is very popular. They like to talk Daddy's podcast, right? Alexandra Cooper. What a kiss ass. That was tough. What do they talk about? Tampons. This is who you want as the next president of the United States while you're struggling? This is serious, America. We're trying to survive as a people. We're trying to survive as a nation. World War III is on the horizon. And she goes on a show and talks about tampons. She wants to go on the Howard Stern show, and she's going to go on the 5? Is that a serious candidate to you, America? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Montana is a very solid state. They're very solid patriots. Big damn state. Very small population. So those people know how to live on their own. They're self-sufficient. Tim Sheehy represents that kind of person. He's the Republican running for the Senate Montana against far-left liberal Tester, who's... It's Tesla, isn't it? What the hell is his name, Tim? I can't even remember. Tester.
It's Tester with a T, that's right.
Tester. So, Tim, first of all, your numbers are looking decent, aren't they?
Yeah, they've looked good for a few months now, but as you well know, we can't trust the polls, we can't trust the numbers, so we got to keep the pressure on, but they do look good.
So tell us what it looks like there. In other words, in terms of the money being spent, are the Democrats flowing? Every state they're spending anywhere from $50 to $110 million. I don't know where they get all this money, but is that what they're doing to you?
Absolutely, yeah. Right now we are the most expensive Senate race in American history. I think actually the most expensive political race per vote in American history. As of last week, we crossed that line. So it'll end up being about a $300 million race here with about 575,000 votes coming in. So it's going to be a very expensive race. And obviously they're setting the spending pace, as you know.
Well, tell me this. I would think a state like Montana, 500,000 people, give or take, a lot of people know each other, right? And so a lot of people must know by now that Tester campaigns one way and votes another in Washington, D.C. Do you think a lot of people figured that out?
Yeah, they have. It's been hard to pin him with that for 18 years because obviously you have a very friendly media complex, both nationally as well as in the state. And then you've got, of course, just a massive spending imbalance. They'll put up $100 million, $200 million every cycle to make sure that, there's enough money to convince Montanans that Tester's a Republican because, as you know, he votes like Elizabeth Warren in D.C., then comes back here, throws on an orange vest, and acts like a Bible-thumping, gun-toting, border security Republican. And he's pulled it off a couple of times. But this time, it's pretty tough. The last 3.5 years of which he's voted every single time with the Biden-Harris agenda. Every single time it's mattered, from the Inflation Reduction Act to funding secret migrant flights to voting to let boys play girls' sports. Party line every single time he's been there. He hasn't defected once, and that's why Kamala Harris has been able to break all the more ties than any other vice president in the history of this country, because Jon Tester never once chose to stand up and cross the aisle and say, this is not what Montana wants. This is bad for our country, bad for our state. I'm going to stand up. He never did, not once.
And Montana's a rural state, for crying out loud. There's nothing in common in many ways in terms of its economy with Massachusetts, with New York, with Rhode Island. And yet he votes with the senators who are far left from these dark blue states, correct?
He absolutely does, in lockstep. Number one recipient of lobbyist cash in the whole nation, top recipient of out-of-state dark money. Literally, they just flow monies into his coffers. But you have to hand it to the guy. He's a very talented retail politician. He's got a very, very sophisticated and capable grassroots operation. And, of course, he's got all the money he needs to craft a message. And with a million people in this state, you got the fourth largest state in the country with 1 million people. It's not that hard to saturate markets and literally dominate the messaging around a candidate, and that's what they do every single time. But luckily, we started early this campaign, and most importantly, Mark, we got out on the ground. All 56 counties, every VFW hall, every rodeo we could get to, we just shoe-leathered our way there and shook so many damn hands and just looked people in the eye, talked to them directly, and listened to them, most importantly, because we're a constitutional republic. We're supposed to listen to our people and then take their will back to D.C., not the other way around. And by doing that, we've earned the respect of the people of Montana, even though we've been outspent massively since day one. And as a result, as you said, the numbers look good. We're going to keep doing that all the way to the finish line.
We're talking to Tim Sheehy, Tim for MT, that's short for Montana, timformt.com. So, shaking hands and so forth, you have a strong ground game? You're going to have the precincts manned on Election Day?
100%. I think Montana, listen, as you know, Mark, I'm a first-time candidate. I've never run for student council or Congress or anything else, so my experience in politics is this campaign. So a heck of a first shot into politics. But I'll tell you, from what I've seen on the ground, what I've heard from our experts, the state of Montana, our Secretary of State, our governor, they've invested in unprecedented election security measures this go-around, from poll watchers to ballot security to ballot carrying, ballot harvesting. Those are legal here. You can vote early. Early voting started yesterday here in Montana. Mail-in voting is legal. Actually, early voting started this morning, but, the calendar roll over to today, started to today. So early voting's legal, mail-in voting's legal, absentee. So it's critical that we get out and vote every legal means possible because we know they're going to do it, and we have to do the same. I'd love to see in-person, same-day voter ID everywhere, but that's not the law right now in this country or in the state, so we've got to make sure we get out the vote. We got to swamp the vote by so much it doesn't matter what happens, we win.
Mm-hmm. So we want people to vote early, right? So we can spend time in getting people out who may not normally vote or focus resources on getting out other people to vote. So you want as many people to vote early as possible, no?
100%. And we learned this lesson the hard way, as you well know, back in, I saw you in RJC a few weeks ago in Nevada. 2022, the Senate election there. We had the largest snowstorm in like 30 years hit election night in Nevada. And most of the Republicans were told, hey, only vote same day. Don't trust the mail-ins. Don't trust early voting. And as a result, in some cases, I think up in the Sierra Nevadas, they were getting 8-10 feet of snow, huge snowstorms. So voter turnout dropped precipitously, especially in rural areas, which, as you know, hurts us. So we're telling folks, listen, we live in a rural northern state. Snowstorm can hit between now and Election Day. Vote early. As soon as you get that ballot, fill it out, mail it in, or go to a polling station. Vote early. That's the best way to make sure your vote's going to be counted.
And if people want to know what to do, how to help, where do they go?
Yeah, the Secretary of State's website, Chrissy Jacobson is our Secretary of State. She's sent out some great voter information packets around the state. They can go to her website. Each county, of course, has also election websites because, as we know, counties have precincts run them. But the Secretary of State website in Montana will be a great resource. And, of course, there are plenty of others. You can go to 10formt.com as well. But the best place to go is our Secretary of State website.
And 20 seconds left. If people want to donate, where do they go?
TimForMT.com, TimForMT.com.
And you're a great patriot. You're a combat veteran. Your wife is. You started a business. And now you want to help your country. And we wish you all the best, Tim Sheehy. God bless you, my friend.
All right. Thank you, sir.
We shall return. Go vote early, Montana.
Is that a copy of the Constitution you've got? Or are you just happy to see Mark Levin? Call him now at 877-381-3811.
So I want you to listen to this back and forth between Peter Doocy and the spokesidiot for the idiot at the White House, and just how completely dishonest these people are. They're incompetent. They are ideological. They're driving this country into the toilet. We have an opportunity to mop them out, to broom them out, and to bring in somebody who knows how to run an economy, knows how to run a country, to secure a border, to build up a military, to back our cops and firefighters. It's not even a close call, but for the propagandists in the media and well over $1 billion in lies that they're telling about Trump. See, this is what I know. Trump loves America. He doesn't want to fundamentally transform it. Obama, Harris, the rest of them, they want to fundamentally transform America, which means they don't love it. Trump loves it, and he loves the American people. And I'll say it again, and I'll say it every evening. Those of you who are on the fence, or I'm not voting because I don't like Trump, do you really hate Trump more than you love America? I've been saying this now for 2 months. Do you hate Trump more than you love your country? Because if you do, then there's something wrong with you. Because you have children and grandchildren, and you got to leave them a country that functions, where there's some level of individual liberty and free will. This is a disaster. We can't survive another 4 years with an open border. We can't survive another 4 years economically with this kind of drunken Marxist spending. If you love the state of Israel, it cannot survive with Harris cutting off arms, undermining the leader of Israel, and giving billions and billions of dollars to terrorist regimes. Those of you who are concerned about communist China, what do you think they're going to do under a Harris presidency? They're going to invade Taiwan. And they're hollowing out our military? I mean, come on. This is basic stuff. But here's the back and forth. Peter Doocy and the idiot spokesman for the idiot. Cut 13, go.
President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir. What you do? Yes, it's misinformation.
Is there money to send to Lebanon right now?
I just mentioned to you that we provided more than $200 million to folks who are impacted in the area, and I just shared with you that people are deciding not to. People are deciding not to.
Wait. To Congress that there's not enough money to help people.
We're talking about the SBA disaster loan.
That's money for people in North Carolina,
and that's important. And people in North Carolina need that. Wait, this is nothing new. Peter, this is nothing new. Congress comes together, they provide money, millions of dollars, for disaster relief. We're asking them to do the job that they have been doing for some time.
From a letter that President Biden sent to Johnson, McConnell, Schumer, and Jeffries. The president's letter is not misinformation. Would you agree?
No, the way you're asking me the question is misinformation. There is money that we are allocating to the impacted areas, and there's money there to help people who truly need it. There are survivors who need the funding, and it's there.
That you don't like misinformation.
I actually said we have the money available to help survivors of Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Milton. Now,
that's enough. Who are we supposed to believe? Mayorkas, who says they're out of money, or her says we've given $250 million. Now look how stupid that is. What do you mean you've given $250? The people need water. They need necessities. They need food. They need clothing. They need stuff. They can't go to the ATM machine and withdraw money. And they're talking about $750 per person. Maybe that adds up to $250 million. Maybe it doesn't. People need to subsist. They need the basics. There are no grocery stores that are functioning. There's no 7-Eleven. How stupid is this? Even the comments she's making don't make any sense. They didn't pre-position the supplies that they needed to pre-position. And all we keep hearing is they're doing extraordinary work. What is it, day 9? Nobody's attacking the 82nd Airborne or the 101st. I know they're extraordinary. I know they'll do what they need to do. But when the commander-in-chief sends them in a week after the fact, how many people can survive more than 3 days without fresh water? Very few. You know, I've always said if we rely on the government to eat, we'll starve to death. If we rely on the government for water, we'll die of thirst. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris and her ilk, they want to control more and more of your government. More and more of the private sector and grow the government. They want to control your health care. They can't even deal with FEMA. They can't even secure the border. They're running the debt through the roof, but they want more power. Why? Because the bottom line is this. They're power hungry. Good times and bad. They're power hungry. Marxists are power hungry. Democrat apparatchiks are power hungry. That's the bottom line. They want control. That's why they hate an independent Supreme Court. That's why they hate a secure border, because they can't control the population, so they import a new population. That's why they want to eliminate the filibuster rule, so they can ram through a one-time faction, things that we cannot reverse. That's why they appoint judges like this Tanya Chutkan, or whatever the hell the idiot's name is. Bomb throwers. That's why they do what they do. Fundamental transformation. Revolution by immigration. Redistribution of wealth. What the hell does this have to do with our Constitution and a free society? Nothing. If you read 2 books, you don't have to read any. American Marxism and the Democrat Party Hates America, you'll understand the whole thing. Read one and then the other. Or get the audio. I don't care. Or get nothing. I'm just telling you. It's all there in plain English. Who they are, what they are, how they behave, how they're conducting themselves. Let's go back and let's think about the founding of the nation. Do you think the founders of our government would say, why don't we bring people into the country who are gang members? Why don't we bring people into the country who are going to harm the country and our fellow citizens? You think they would do that? You think they would say, let's flow money to governments, to countries that hate us and hate our allies, you think they would agree to that? When you look at your Constitution, it's yours, it's not hers. When you look at your Constitution, it is set up. It is a complex, even complicated document. They're trying to figure out ways for power to check power. Power to check power. That's how you sustain liberty. And even then, societies that are created that way don't survive forever, in perpetuity. They hate the Constitution. They're constantly attacking free speech, the Bill of Rights, separation of powers. They're attacking the independence of the court, dehumanizing the constitutionalists on the court, just as they dehumanize other people they can't stand, whether it's Netanyahu or Trump or whomever. The Constitution is built to limit people like Kamala Harris. It's built to limit people like Bernie Sanders. And they're blowing through it. This election is about the Constitution. It's about the principles in the Declaration of Independence. It's also, by the way, about the moral principles in the Ten Commandments and the Golden Rule and all these things we were raised on. Because Marxism, centralized government, a growing police state with a ubiquitous bureaucracy, a relative handful of politicians and masterminds making the decisions, that is a form of totalitarianism. Now, you got to vote. You got to vote early. You got to help other people to get out and vote while your vote still matters. That's what Elon Musk means. He means you can go through the motions and vote after this election, but it won't matter because most of the government will be enshrined within a bureaucracy that is not touchable by the voter, by the American people. It will be immune from voting. It'll be immune from we the people. That's what Elon Musk is talking about, because the man's read about totalitarian regimes. So have I. So you'll go through the motions. You'll have elections. But they won't matter. They won't matter. If there's early voting in your state, vote now. Vote now. I urge you. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I watched DeSantis in Florida, and I say to myself, "Look, compare that man to Biden and Harris." Seriously. What a stellar leader. What a stellar leader. I watched this guy, DeSantis. He digs into the issues. He knows what truck is going where, what town's got what, this bridge here. He knows his state. He knows the county. He knows the towns. He knows the cities, the metro areas. He gets up there. He's fully informed. I watch Harris, and she's talking about tampons with some moron and can't even explain her economic plan because she doesn't care about that. She knows what she's going to do. Tax and spend and redistribute and steal. That's it. It's her 4-point plan. And you look at the difference between them. You look at Biden bumping into walls. He's still an absolute imbecile. Great country like this. And I watch the way this man runs Florida. It's just exceptional. Which is a long way of saying, Floridians, listen to your governor. He knows what he's doing. He's telling you what to do. Listen to him so you don't lose your life. It's bad enough to lose everything else. Now, I'm not in Florida. I'm not in my home. My home's on the East Coast, but it's part of this cone. Our home, the family home. But because my injury's in Virginia, I couldn't get there. But if I were there, I'd get the hell out of there. I'm just being honest. And you're running out of time. You're running out of time. All right. I wanted to get to something here. Let me make sure I get to this. Hold on one second. New York Jets. Oh, here we go. So Kamala Harris has hundreds of millions of dollars left to burn. You know what she's going to do with her money? Run a massive negative attack campaign against Trump. Because she has nothing to say for herself. Oh, she wants a joyous campaign. Joyous. We're joyous. We don't look at the back. We don't look at the past. We look at the future. Because if you look at the past, you might realize exactly what a kook I am. So in the final weeks, writes NBC, of the presidential campaign, it's aimed at trying to persuade undecided voters that Trump is a monster. Harris' campaign is planning to more aggressively attack former President Trump in the remaining weeks ahead of the November election, a new phase aimed at trying to move the small number of undecided voters her way. According to the Harris campaign, they've been lying about Trump and Vance, lying. That's all they've got. The change is driven in part by internal campaign data showing that sharper messaging against Trump could persuade some still unsure Americans to support Harris, according to 3 of the campaign officials. I have a better idea, Mr. Producer. Go on Howard Stern and talk about lesbians, don't you think? I wonder if the old Howard Stern will ask her about her sex life, when's the last time she had sex. I wonder if he'll do all that stuff, because that's the Howard Stern that actually drew an audience. Now he's just an old liberal, you know. He's an old liberal. The effort is to include new ads and harsher language on the campaign trail that highlights Trump's past actions. Yeah, why don't you do that? Securing the border, building the economy, rebuilding the military after Obama hollowed it out. Why don't you do that? Peace in our time, prosperity, yeah. Oh, you're not going to run that? Oh. We're done already? I feel like we just started here. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, our brothers and sisters in Israel. We're behind you. Hit the nukes, hit the oil towers, hit them, hit them. And you, the American people, the best of the best. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.